from start to finish the process of us receiving a client to placing them into a job to job coaching and all the forms and the way that we want to carry that out, everything in between, and the way that process is going to take place. So start to finish, we have a pretty wide audience. We have lots of different people who are in different stages doing different jobs. So some of this is going to be like, okay, I've heard this a million times. Some of this is going to be brand new. So I'm just hoping to kind of fill in the gaps. I feel like everybody has a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And hopefully with this audience, we can kind of just fill in all the missing pieces, because I feel like that's where we struggle. So this is the process to finish. We, Allies with Families, Allies, our support employment program, we're contracted with Voc Rehab and the Division of Services for People with Disabilities, and our sole, with those contracts, our only job, the only thing that we're supposed to do is help clients, their clients, find and maintain employment. So if I'm an individual with a disability and I go to Voc Rehab or to DSPD and I say, I need help finding a job, then they refer them to us. They carry that out with employment counselors, or DSPD's case is support coordinators. We deal primarily with Voc Rehab clients because we're a new provider. Most of our clients are Voc Rehab, so I'm going to focus on Voc Rehab, but I'll sprinkle it in DSPD as well. And we can go into DSPD if you have a specific question about DSPD. That's a whole nother animal. But VR is pretty basic, and I'll use that for most of our examples. Anyway, that's where we start, is with Voc Rehab. A client starts with Voc Rehab and then transitions to DSPD. Generally, that's the way it works. So if Voc Rehab feels they have a client and they say Allies with Families will be a good fit for that client, then they refer them to us and we start working with them. After they made that referral, they send us an authorization, a form that says, hey, I approve you to work with this client. And then we can start, once we get that authorization, we can move forward with working with that client. Like I said, once we get the go-ahead from Voc Rehab, or in some cases DSPD, we can contact that new client and set up a meeting to begin what we call a work strategy assessment. Now, the first meeting to do this assessment should be at the client's home, so we can observe daily living activities, see who they live with, what their housing situation's like, all that kind of stuff. You get a lot by just visiting somebody at their home, and we call it a home visit. So during this first initial meeting, we're going to fill out an intake form. It used to be an employment profile form, and you can still use that form if you'd like, but I've switched it over to this new intake form because we've had a lot of issues, this intake form here, with the old employment profile form. So the only difference is it's the same content. The employment profile form is good if you're using Adobe. It's just to fill in the blank. This is better if you're using like a Word or a Google Doc kind of a document. So it just depends on what format you want to use, but I don't care if you use either one. But the first visit, you're just gathering this basic information. The information in the intake and the employment profile is like name, social security number, phone number, address, male, female, basic intake information. If they're receiving benefits, transportation, little details, criminal history, all that kind of stuff. So we gather all that, and then we also obtain 2 forms of ID. One of the forms of ID has to have a picture on it. It just comes in handy once they start applying for jobs or they actually get a job. Then we have that stuff on file, like their social security number and stuff, and the forms of ID for like I-9 forms, W-4s, whatever. All the basic new hire paperwork, we can just help them hit the ground running. So we gather all that. Then we can actually start the work strategy assessment. Now the work strategy assessment is in a doc form or a Microsoft Word form. If you'd rather have it in an Adobe form, I can convert it and you can do it that way. But it should be pretty straightforward. I try to make it as simple as I can, where you just basically fill in the information, and then if you, like, for example, here on this first part with general, you see in parentheses it has all the info that you need to put in there, and just make it sound nice, like you're a social worker, like don't just put client's name, Bob Johnson, Down syndrome, they receive SSI. They don't have DSPD services, period. You know, make it sound nice. Try to make it a few paragraphs. Like, you can just make it sound much better. Like, Bob Johnson is an individual with Down syndrome. He is currently receiving SSI and no other benefits at this time. When you get into detail, he's receiving $750 a month in SSI and Medicaid, and is receiving Medicaid. He is receiving no other services outside of vocational rehabilitation and allies with family support and employment programs. That is including DSPD services. He has not been assigned a support coordinator. We recommend that, just go into more details. Don't just pump it out. Make it look nice. Make it informative. More details, the better. With the work strategy assessment, it generally takes about 2 to 3 meetings to completely do it at a minimum, and it should take no longer than 2 to 3 weeks to complete an assessment. So I generally try to meet at least twice a week during 2 weeks, so you're getting 4 meetings, and we'll go into what you're doing in those meetings. So the first meeting, like I said, is going to be an intake process where you're just gathering information, you're outlining the program, what you are there to do, you're talking about what they can do to get a job, and then I jump into the work strategy pages, right? 12, 14 pages. The shortest I've ever had is an 8-page assessment. In that assessment, you are basically justifying the end result, and the end result is the recommendation for the service that you're going to provide. So the 8 to 10 to 12, 14 pages is all just saying this is why we're going to recommend this, right? So the counselor is going to review that information and see what you recommended and make sure to go into what those are. So the potential recommendations that we can offer at Allies with Families and that most providers can offer are the voc rehab recommendations, DSPD, and other mental health provider services. So with voc rehab, it's these 4 right here are the main ones that are in bold. The first is a temporary work experience, which I'll go into details with. The second is job preparation and placement. The third is supported job-based training, SJBT, and supported employment. It's important to know these acronyms too, because when you're talking to a counselor, they're going to say SJBT or JPP or TWE, and you're going to be like, you need to know what it is. If you don't, you can just ask them, they'll remind you. These other 3 are specific programs that we carry out at Allies with Families and that some providers also carry out, but they're specific programs that you need specific trainings for. Customized employment, self-employment. Self-employment is just helping the individual start their own business, obviously. Individual placement and support. And individual placement and support is this mental health provider service. Customized employment is a DSPD service. They can also be carried out in voc rehab, but with customized employment, it's just it's basically a more in-depth supported employment. And if you have questions on those 3, that's barely even doing them justice, so you can reach out to me and I can give you the information, or if you're interested in receiving the training for those 3. So going into each, I'm just going to focus on the 4 bolded ones because that's the 4 that this audience is going to be carrying out. With a temporary work experience, this is generally set up for transition age youth, 16, I say 16 to 30, usually it's even younger than that, 16 to 22, 23 years old. That are just looking for a short-term job to gain some general work experience. So if we carry out a TWE, a temporary work experience, you're required to complete a work strategy assessment, do job development, actually help them find a job, and then job coach for a 60 to 120 day period. 1 to 120 days, but the minimum they can work is 60 days, the maximum is 120. The job, like I said, lasts between 60 to 120 days. Typical candidates are like high school, college age students, individuals with no work history that are unsure what career pathway they'd like to take, and then someone looking for a summer job kind of thing, like an internship, something like that. So these are individuals just looking for a short-term job to gain some experience. And it's really flexible. Some clients need coaching full-time. For those they say they work 120 days, then they have coaching for 120 days. Some don't need coaching for a single day. It's really, really flexible. It can be clients like MSD clients, most significantly disabled clients, or clients that don't need job coaching at all. Like, it's really, really flexible. The next is job preparation and placement. This is the least used pathway through voc rehab, I've noticed. It's JPP. So what it is it's not really they don't pay us for job coaching. You basically are there, you do a work strategy assessment, then you help them find a job. Then I check up on them, at their job, make sure everything's running smoothly and that the job's a good fit, but you don't actually stay with them at their job. This seems to be voc rehab's way of placing mental health clients. That's generally the population that this is designed for, it seems like. Maybe high functioning adults with previous work history, physical disabilities who just need some like workplace accommodation. So they might need some help with you going in and saying, hey, this individual will need some type of an accommodation, right? And then helping them establish what that is. So it's very underutilized, but I'll show you why here with this one. It's supported job-based training. This is the most utilized because it's more versatile. It's the exact same as JPP. You do a work strategy assessment. We help them find their job. Once they find their job, we can job coach for up to 100 days on the job. So with JPP, there's not really much room for job coaching. So once they get their job, it's kind of on their own. With SJBT, we have an opportunity to help them keep their job for 3-4 months ish, 100 days, where we're there helping them make sure they can keep their job for a long period of time. So this is why we use SJBT the most. It's the most flexible, um, all that jazz. So last is supported employment. Support employment, just like the other ones, work strategy assessment, help them find a job, except there's no limit on coaching. So these are for clients who need coaching for a long period of time and who have some type of long-term funding option. So typically that's DSPD. This is where DSPD is carried out. So usually with supported employment, we're working with a client for up to 2 years with Voc Rehab, and then Voc Rehab transfers their case to DSPD. That's the rule. There's also some other exceptions, but the general is 2 years with supported employment. So step 2, we've met with Voc Rehab. We've said this is what we recommend. This client is going to use this pathway, either the TWE, JPP, SJBT, SEI, and then we start working on it. If everybody's in agreement, is that a word? Agreement. Everybody agrees, then we carry out that pathway. So the job development, the way we do it is the same for every single client. So we'll review the work strategy assessment, and for example, we'll say this client should use, I recommend this client use SJBT, supported job-based training. And then the counselor says, yes, I agree, and the client says, yes, I think that's good. Then it doesn't matter what it is, we're going to do these 9 steps right here on the left, or on the right, excuse me. And we just check them off as we go. The first thing that we do is we go through the roles and responsibilities, we set goals, and I'll dive into each of these steps a little bit more here. With the roles and responsibilities, this is a specific form that if you don't have a copy of, I can give to you. It outlines 6 specific things that we should be doing. We're the CRP on the top here, allies with families, or you would be the CRP. And this is the client's 6 things that they need to be doing. So this is just to hold us accountable and hold the client accountable to what is supposed to be happening. So for example, and with those 6 things, you can add like specific goals. So we've been adding with our clients, I've been adding things like, I want to get a job, what's the date, November. So I want to get a job by January 1st, 2019. We'll put that in there in a goals section, and they sign their goals and they say, so you can edit this to make it specific to the client, and maybe they struggle with a certain thing, so you can make a new thing, or you feel like you need to be held accountable for something specific. You can add stuff, you can take away stuff, whatever client specific. We want to make it specific for that individual. So we do that, we set some goals, and then we review this every time we meet, so that we're making sure we're holding each other accountable and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. The next step is creating a resume. We review the work strategy assessment, and especially the vocational themes. With the work strategy assessment, you'll set 3 specific job themes. So it could be like anything. The last assessment I did, the 3 themes were art, customer service, and social services. And then we come up with 10 specific jobs under those 3 themes. So you have 30 jobs to look into, or 30 specific businesses to look into that provide that product or service that your client is looking to carry out. So we have several templates, resume templates, that we use that are on our Google Drive. So you can open those templates and you can review them. You can review the client's work strategy assessment, their vocational themes, their job themes, specific jobs to target. You can review their what's it called, their intake form. Just anything you can do to really get to know that client, to get to know that individual, to help them create a really good resume. So we'll go into the resume. This is an example of one of our templates. You can see it's really basic, just has their information, and all it really says is like 7 years framing experience, skill framer, right? So you want to make sure when you're using this, we always use this resume assistant. and it just pops up automatically with Microsoft Word if you're not using Microsoft Word, like you're using Google Docs. I can show you how to use this LinkedIn Resume Assistant because it really, really helps. All you do is just input the vocational theme or the vocational goal here. So this individual wants to work as a freight associate, and then the industry is retail. And then it gives you specific examples to help enhance the resume right here. So you can scroll through, you can see it's a long list of different examples to use. So this individual, you can enhance it because all they had put was 7 years framing experience, skilled framer, right? So you can update that and put it specific to this job, things that you can come up with. And then just enhance the resume overall. But with these templates, you have basically 7 different templates. This is one template, and then the client says, I like this specific template. All you do is take that and input their information. So this individual, Jared Perry, maybe we got a new client named Bob Johnson. He says, I like Jared's resume. We just put Bob Johnson, input his information in here, input his phone number, input his email, input his education, just basically erase and replace. Pretty straightforward. And then once you erase and replace, then you can go and input what Bob wants to do and what industry he wants to work in, and then enhance his resume a little bit. And when you're making a resume with a client, they should be doing all this. You're just there to fill in the gaps. So if they don't know something, you're prompting them like, oh, I don't know when I worked at Keystone Custom Framing, or I don't know how much money I made there. Well, maybe we can contact Kevin Holland and find that information out. It's going to take each of these steps. There's 9 total steps. Each of these steps is going to take a long time. Like a resume could take like 1 or 2 different meetings, but we want to make sure it's really good, right? We want to make sure we're knocking things out of the park. We're doing the best we can. So once the resume is set up, you've got that already. Then we go to this site here, ONET. This is just a way for you to really, really make sure the resume is thorough and you've got everything nailed. So the reason that we do this is when you're applying for most like box stores, kind of chain stores, or anybody with an HR system, like an in-depth HR system, when they're getting tons and tons of resumes, they only accept resumes that fit certain keywords, right? So for example, with this next one, you'd see this individual wants to be a grocery store clerk. So we inputted Jared's resume. You include everything except for their personal information and the references. So like the education, the work history, whatever, all that stuff. The meat and potatoes of the resume go in there, and you type in the job title and you click enter, and you search it. When you search, it'll give you the specific jobs that matches with. So grocery clerk or a store clerk or sales floor, he scored a 58 out of 100. So that means we need to add stuff to his resume to get that up. So when you click on store clerk, sales floor, it will give you specific keywords that you should add to your resume in order to make it go through the HR process, right? So you just need to keep inputting that information, clicking here, looking at the specific keywords, adding those specific keywords to the resume until you get a score of above 75 out of 100. So in the specific thing you're looking for. So with stock clerk, it's the same as grocery clerk. Obviously, it's not going to like match up. The names aren't going to match up. Everybody has different names for stuff. So whatever your name is, you just have to match it up and make sure you're getting a high enough score to pass, get through there. So pretty basic, pretty straightforward. If you have questions about the specific site, then you can ask me or just go back and review this, whatever it's called, presentation. We got it recorded, and we'll upload it to YouTube and our personal site too at allysupportedemployment.com. So now the resume is done. It's perfect. You've scored 100 out of 100 on that ONET site. You've used the resume system. You've got this perfect resume. Now what you'll do is you'll create a work email. And we always use Gmail. It's just the easiest thing. So what we'll do is you'll go to Gmail, you'll create a Gmail account, you'll save the password and the username, and the email address, whatever, and the password, so that you have access to it and the client has access to it. That way you can both be checking the email, keeping each other accountable for the jobs that you apply for. So you'll use this email and that resume that you created to create job search accounts. We always make Indeed accounts with our clients. Indeed is just so basic, it's so simple, it's so easy, and you can apply for tons of jobs, in a short period of time. So Indeed is super easy. Everybody uses it. It's basic. We always use Indeed. But you can use whatever else you feel comfortable with or the client knows about or feels comfortable with. That'd be ZipRecruiter. For clients looking for more a professional style of job, we'll use LinkedIn, Monster, Glassdoor, whatever, right? Whatever you feel, as long as it's not some sketchy, weird website. But upload your resume, get your name, get that client's name out there, apply for jobs, all that stuff. Once you've got that done, the work email's made, you've created a couple of job search accounts or at least an Indeed account, and the resume's done, then we want our clients to know how to apply for jobs on their own. So that's when we start helping them learn how to do that. So what that consists of is the step-by-step of how to apply for a job. Like basically just show them how to get on Indeed, look for a job, get on Google, look for a job, find a job they want, click on it, send their resume there, fill out the application online. Because once they have a resume on file, once they have, if you want to make a cover letter with them, all the better. Once they have a work email, once they have their Indeed account in place, the next time they need a job, they're not going to need us because they can just get on Indeed. Their resume is already there. Their email is already connected. They have a work email that they can use specifically for work, and they can do it on their own. They've learned, and they can just apply for jobs, right? That's what our goal is. That's not going to happen every single time, but that's what we should be incentivizing and working towards. So once they've learned and you feel comfortable, they feel comfortable with their resume, they feel good about their accounts, then we move on to mock interviews. So most of our clients, you can see this as an individual, I delete their name and stuff, but you can see how basic this is, and was a high functioning client. Like we'll say, tell me about yourself. These are generally individuals that are working with us, have never had a job or never been through an interview process, so they're not going to know what to say. Like, tell me about yourself. Well, I like to take walks, play piano, draw, woodworking, and writing. That's pretty good for your first time, but you've got to get more detail, right? That's all we're saying to them. We're just helping them with those basic things like eye contact, posture, tone of voice, how to dress for an interview, just the basic interview stuff. And a lot of these slides, like for example, interviews, you could spend a whole training on each specific one. So if you have questions about what to do with mock interviews, we can do a whole training on that. You just need to let me know. So with the mock interviews, tell me about yourself. Just develop a really good interview like you did with the resume. This is a specific form that we use. We use it as like a script. So you'll just input the information. So they'll have kind of something right there, right? That's something to work off of. I like to take walks, play piano, draw, woodworking, and writing. So instead, you can just help them develop like a script to fall back on. Well, my name's Bob. I really love to take long walks. I love to play piano. I taught myself how to play piano. Just more detail. I draw. I consider myself a really artistic person, which I think is why I would be perfect for this job. I've taught myself some woodworking, and like I said, I'm artistic. I love writing. So, you can just go into so much more detail and you can make it sound a little bit better and help that client memorize these basic answers. With our mock interview form, we have 10 basic interview questions that if they can at least have an answer to fall back on, it doesn't have to be like a robotic answer necessarily, but if they have something they can fall back on to not feel so nervous in the interview, then that's what we're really looking for. So you'll help them fill out and make kind of a script, more or less, for their interviews so that they feel more comfortable when they get into those situations. Continue with mock interviews. After those soft skills are developed, focus on more specific answers to questions. Change things up. Just try to really get them to get the interview process down. Like I said, because our goal is for them to do this on their own. So if they feel good and they have their script on file once they need a job on their own, and after we're gone, then they can just jump right in and do it themselves. So we also have a couple other forms for various employment situations. So that it's the same thing. It's a just general script. It's already written up. You can just give them copies of it. So like how to follow up after an interview, how after you've applied but you haven't interviewed yet. Like we have several of these forms that have been developed that you can use for different situations. So we have lots of things to fall back on. If your client has questions of what to say or how to talk to people in the community or how to talk to employers, we focus on that a lot. So general development. Um, After you've applied for a job, you want to follow up with that job in person 2 to 3 days after applying. The first few times I go in with the client to help them get comfortable, once they are comfortable, I expect them to do it on their own. Like I'll take them and I'll drive them places, but they're going to go in and do it on their own, and I wait for them. Once they feel comfortable and they're doing good, right? Once they've got their scripts kind of memorized and stuff, they know what they're going to say. Um, with Allies of Families, we say it shouldn't take more than 3 months for an individual to find a job. If it's taken longer than 3 months, then we meet with their employment team, so their counselor or whoever, and we talk about what's going on, what we can make some changes, go back to those roles and responsibilities, those goals, and see what's happening, why it's not working, and try to fix it. So all in the background while we're doing making that email with the client, while we're doing mock interview skills, while we're applying for jobs online with the client, while we're doing all these things, resume writing, we'll be in the background. At Allies of Families, we spend time in the background working one-on-one with employers to set up opportunities for our clients that are out there that are putting in the work. So when we're working with an employer, it's important to go in with the mindset that we're helping their business, not them helping our client. We're there to solve problems that the business owner, that the manager, that place is facing. Things like high turnover, not targeting specific market demographic, low innovation, and not taking advantage of tax credits that are available to them. We're there to present something that is going to benefit them. So like I said, it doesn't really matter who we're talking to when we're working with different businesses. We could be talking to the owner of the business. We could be talking to a hiring manager. We could be talking to a franchise owner. Everybody wants the same thing. They want to improve their bottom line, obtain and retain better employees, and we're the answer of how they can do that. So before you go out and speak with different businesses, it's important that you compile a list of specific places that you plan on going to. And if you can do it with a specific client in mind, that's the best situation you can do it in. The second thing is just to choose your time wisely. Don't be stupid. Like don't go in to an Olive Garden at 6 p.m. It's going to be busy. 6 p.m. on a Friday, right? Go there in the morning. Usually morning is the best time for any business. That's when the owner or the manager is going to be there. That's the best time. Be sure to wear appropriate business attire. This is something I've just changed in my approach when working with businesses. I used to just go in like jeans and a t-shirt. Now I try to wear something like business casual, like button-up shirt, blouse, pressed jeans, slacks, and a name badge. So if you don't have a name badge, let me know and we'll get you one. It just makes you look a little more official, makes life a little bit easier when you go in, and people tend to listen to you a little bit more. Gives you a little more, what do you call it, like some more credentials, I guess. So what do you actually say when you show up to a business? You always, or personally, I always open up with, can I speak with the hiring manager, or may I speak with the hiring manager? May I speak with the owner? If the person that you ask that question to says, why do you need to do that? I just say, I'm with the State Office of Rehabilitation. I need to talk to someone about employment. They don't know what that means, and they'll go get that person. They just hear state, employment. I don't know what to do. I'm going to go get the person you need to talk to. They don't question you. They don't make up a lie. They just go do it. So once the hiring manager, the business owner comes out, or perhaps you just spoke to them when you introduce yourself, then I just say the same thing. I'm from the State Office of Rehabilitation. We work alongside businesses to help them retain and hire and retain employees, take advantage of tax credits, and just simply improve their bottom line. And then I try to schedule an appointment. So I just say, I know you're super busy. I just popped in. I'm not a salesman. I just need to go through. We're just meeting with business owners, or we're meeting with hiring managers to talk about how we can improve their bottom line. Do you have time to meet? Give them specific time tomorrow at 10 a.m. And then I just look at my phone like I'm going to schedule it with them. And they'll say one of two things. The first thing they'll say is, um, yeah, let's schedule it. That's awesome. Or they'll say, sorry, I guess I don't understand who you are. That's usually what I get because you're just throwing a lot at them. They've never heard anything like this. And then that gives you the go ahead to go into what you're saying. So regardless of their answer, if they say they want to schedule an appointment, you're going to say the same thing to them, but it's just going to be tomorrow at 10 a.m. instead of right now. If they say, sorry, I guess I don't understand who you are, what you're doing, then I just say something like self-deprecating. I just say, oh, sorry, I suck at explaining what I do. Let me go into more detail. Let me tell you what I'm doing. And I call it a pitch. It's not much of a pitch, but you just go into more of what you are saying. So I'll just say, like I said, my name's Hayden. I'm with the State Office of Rehabilitation. With the state and allies with families, what we do is we assist local businesses with hiring and retaining employees with disabilities. Um, and then let them know what your expectation is. You don't expect them to hire multiple clients. You don't expect them to bend over backwards to make a hire. You don't expect them to treat your client any differently than their typical employees. What you do expect them to do is give your client a fair opportunity to put some trust in the business philosophy that we're presenting. Um, and if there aren't any opportunities right now, you'll be checking up sometime in the future. So, like I said, with our pitch, I set the expectation. Yeah, we assist businesses with hiring and retaining individuals with disabilities. Now, I'm not saying that we're expecting you to hire, 15 new um, 15 new employees that all have disabilities, or if you're in the hiring process, to preference our clients that do have disabilities. What I am saying is that there's an opportunity that exists with specific clients we're working with within your business. And that exists within the population, the market demographic that you tap into and you hire somebody with a disability. We want people to know when you've hired one of our clients, we want them to know that you have taken someone on with a disability and that you've done a social service to the community and for our program. So we do some advertising for you. We let the community know that you've done this great social service. And when we do that, that allows 53%, the disability population takes up 53% of consumers. That means if we advertise for you and you use it in your own personal advertising, then 1 out of every 2 customers that comes into your business is going to draw an emotional connection to your business. That's 53% of the global population and $8 trillion of annual disposable income. So if you're not targeting a specific market demographic right now, simply by hiring somebody with a disability, now you are. Now you're targeting the disability population, which is half of your consumer base. The second thing is that studies have shown that hiring individuals with disabilities, those individuals are more likely to stay at your business long term. So you're going to solve some issues like high employee turnover. And you're also creating a workplace environment of accommodation and innovation. So when you design products or services for people with disabilities, for your potential employee, and I always say employee, not employees, because I don't want them to get overwhelmed thinking they're going to have to take on a bunch of clients. I say if you're designing your product or service for your employee, that's going to trickle over to your customer base and create a path of least resistance for your product or service. So just remember that products and services designed by and for people with disabilities just improve customer satisfaction for all. And I use a lot of business lingo like that. Like I'm not a business expert, but I just use that lingo so that they think, oh, this is something that's gonna, well, I genuinely believe and I know from personal experience that this will help their business. But you're just saying things like, we're gonna lower your turnover, we're tapping into half of your customer base, we're providing a workplace environment of inclusion and accommodation, and which is going to create a path of least resistance for your customers. All these different things, and then I sum it up with the shortest one that also hiring our clients automatically qualifies you for the work opportunity tax credit, where you can qualify for up to $9,600 per year per employee hired. And then sum it all up. You're tapping into half of the entire world's the entire world economy. What's he say? Sorry, now I'm like getting my words all jumbled. So I just sum it all up by saying you're tapping into half of your customer base and create an emotional connection with those customers, which is going to drive reoccurring revenue. you're more likely to have your employees stay long term, and you're creating innovation within your business, which is going to trickle over to your customer base, and you're going to qualify for some awesome tax credits just by simply making a hire and really doing a social service, doing a good thing, and it's going to be good for your business as well. So the reason that we go through all that is to get a commitment. That doesn't necessarily mean the ultimate commitment is for them to commit to hiring a client, right? If they can commit to that, then you've done your job. Easy enough. You've got it all finished. But that doesn't necessarily happen every single time, but you still want to leave them with a commitment. Be firm, be confident when you ask for a commitment. This is not just a great social service. It's something that's going to genuinely benefit their business. So when I extend a commitment, I say, so I have a specific individual that I'd love to come in, and I'm not expecting you to hire them right now, but I would like to have an opportunity for them to come in and see if there's something that they could do to benefit your business. If you could, interview them, you could take a look at their resume, just get their foot in the door, and 99% of the time they're going to say yes. If they say no, then there's no point in wasting much of your time anyway, because that's just a business who is just going to say no to anybody who walks through the door. But if they say I can't hire anybody right now, then just say, well, let's keep in contact. How about I come back in a couple of months and I'll think about what we can do, or I'll come back next month and I'll think if I can come up with something to benefit your business. It doesn't necessarily have to be hiring an individual with a disability. And then genuinely go and think of something. Come back to them. You're there to help them, right? And then that is just going to leave them with a good impression. You're going to follow up in a month, and then maybe that door's going to be open at that point. Leave them with some type of commitment. So you've done all that. The employer says, oh yeah, I love what you just told me. This is the perfect situation. Let me hire one of your clients. And you take the client in and you've got tons of paperwork. So in the beginning we talked about making sure you get 2 forms of ID and the social security number and all that stuff. This is where it becomes really, really important that you have all that. It just makes things easier because now you're not trying to gather that last minute. The client gets a job, you've got their ID on file, you print it off, you give it to the employer, you fill out their I-9 form, you fill out their W-4, you fill out all this. And you want the client to be filling all that stuff out as much as they can, and you're just there to fill in the gaps of what they don't understand or what they might need help with. Well, okay, so you've got all the paperwork filled out. You'll also attend all the training. If it's a JPP client, if it's an SJBT client, doesn't matter. You should go to the training so you get to know what that business does and what the client's going to be doing and what the company policies and procedures are, all that kind of stuff. You're there to gather that information so you can better help your client. Even if it's a JPP client, you're not going to be there job coaching necessarily, but you'll be there just to gain information. The first bit of paperwork that we fill out is the work opportunity tax credit. I call it the WOTC. It consists of 2 different forms that need to be sent into the Department of Workforce Services. I always do it before the client's first day on the job, or at the very least on their first day at the job. The first form is the IRS form 8850. That's this form here on the left side of the page. It's a 2-page tax form. The first page will be filled out by the client, by the employee, and the second will be filled out by the employer. Pretty straightforward. If you can fill out the application, you can fill out this form. The second is IRS form 9961. This is a 4-page form, which is the same information from the first form, and it can all be filled out by the employee, by the client, and yourself, but it's generally pretty helpful to have the employer put in some information. Like you can see that you need the EIN number of the business, so it's kind of hard to get that. If you need help finding that online though, and you don't want to go ask the employer, you can find it online. I can show you how to do that. So under page 2, there's all of them are pretty straightforward. If you have the client there with you and their work strategy assessment and intake, you can just fill it all out pretty easy. But under page 2, there is, under question 23, there's a question about eligibility, documentation for eligibility. All you need to do is put the counselor's, their vocational rehabilitation counselor's name, phone number, email, and then the address of their office, and you'll be ready to go. pretty straightforward with that question. That's the only question that you probably would have wouldn't know what to put. So it's pretty straightforward. If you don't want to send in a paper application, you could do it online. I haven't personally done this yet. I just saw that they just started doing this, but you can just go to jobs.utah.gov/employer/business/WOTC, and you scroll down to the bottom of the page. It says WOTC applications. You just click on that, and I think you can just fill it out online. I personally just send them in by mail because that's the way I've always done it. And this is the address that you send those to. So pretty straightforward with those. But you have a couple of different options on how to fill out that work opportunity tax credit for the employer. So they get the job. We do a job start form, and then there's another form called a CIE Form 60 that we send in to Voc Rehab. However, they're the exact same information. One you just do after 5 days, one you do off for the start of the job. So the job start report, job start form, pretty basic info. You can get all this. That's why we say go to training and just ask their employer. Put their name, their job title, what they'll be doing, their rate of pay, benefits, if it's a union position. With this disclosure, we can just have them sign that with the roles and responsibility. All it says, you just need a little form that says, you can just type it on like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever, that the client agreed that you can work with the employer, and that you can disclose information about your disability or whatever, right? And then you click yes, name of the business, the address, and the name of the supervisor. Pretty basic. You can just input the information there. After the client has worked 5 days on the job, then we need to send the counselor a job analysis form. So that job analysis form is exactly the same information. It's going to have, the wage, supervisor name, business name, all that stuff, but it just goes into more detail about the job specific. So you need to have a schedule for that client. You need a job description of what they'll be doing at their business, what their uniform is going to be, their break times, and then how we're going to help them keep their job, and what we're going to do on our end to make sure that they keep that job. So it's the exact same stuff, just more details. So with JPP, like we said, our job coaching basically ends after 5 days on the job. We go to their training. I check on JPP clients at least weekly for the first 4 weeks, just to make sure everything's running smoothly. Check in with the employer, check in with the client, and then monthly, semi-annually, annually, make sure they're just keeping their job. Things are running smooth. Things are going good. With SJBT and TWE on the job, clients will continue to receive a job coach for the next 1 to 4 months. Like I said, we start with these clients for their entire shift, and then we start phasing out. So we might be there the first 2 weeks for 100%. Then we're dropped down to 80% of that time we're there. Then to 75, then to 70, then to 60. Then we're only there half the time, till the point we're just not even there at all. And that needs to be done with SJBT clients, like I said, by day 100. With the TWE clients, they're working anywhere between 60 to 120 days. So if they're only working 60 days, you need to be done coaching by 60 days. If they're working 120, same thing. Supported employment, we have, like I said, with Voc Rehab about 2 years, but our goal is to phase out of coaching as quickly as possible. So our goal is to phase out of that job coaching, but generally these clients just take a little bit longer. So with coaching, the goal behind coaching should always be to get the client to the point where they can work on their job independently. The sooner that happens, the better it is for the individual, the business, and for us. When we're coaching, we're just cheerleaders. We're motivating, encouraging them to build confidence in themselves and in their abilities. This is the Google Drive form that we use, and then we send this form into the state as well bi-weekly. So we set a specific goal. Like I said, they want to be into a job by January 9th or January 1st, 2019, and to use employment as a way to get more independence. This is how we're going to help them. We're going to help with transportation. We're going to set up job shadows, situational assessments, and advocate with employers and confidence building activities. And then we put the date in here, what service they're having, what we did with them on that day, and the time. Pretty straightforward. A task analysis. So the key to keeping an employee at a job, in my opinion, comes down to two different things. It's prompting and task analysis. And this is something I'm just being awoken to, awake. I'm just awaking up to the idea of these two things, and I'm focusing on task analysis. And we're going to do a few trainings on basically on how to create a good task analysis. And I'm working on that myself because I'm not that good at task analysis right now. But we're developing task analysis, and we're developing some software that we can use for our clients for task analysis. So there's no formal form to use because each analysis is so different, and each client's needs are so different. But each client should have a task analysis for their job. And when we're making them, just get creative. Use pictures. Use your phone, or the client's phone is the best. iPad or tablet. Things like that. Laminated pictures that they can check off with. Right now we're using a software on our iPad, and we have a work iPad for all of our clients. They can log in to their specific folder. So all they do is they open up that, we open the app up for them, and then they have their options. And they can click on. So for example, we use Bob. If you, and I'll do a specific training on this task analysis once we've got it figured out a little bit better. But we're just, anyway, what I'm getting at is we're just trying to get creative and have a step-by-step process of like clock in, go to do this, go to do that, da 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 da, boom boom boom, so that they have that and they can just swipe through and they can figure out what they need to do next. And that's how we can phase out of that job. So job coaching in general. Like I said, prompting and task analysis. If you can get really good at prompting the client and get a really good task analysis, I really genuinely believe we can phase out of any situation. It might take a long time, but I genuinely feel like that's the backbone to job coaching. And as tempting as it might be to help a client do their job, back off as much as you can. That's the biggest thing that I've been learning about job coaching. We're just there to guide them. When you prompt a client to carry out a task, ask questions like, how do you think we should do it? What's the best way to accomplish that task? You know, the client might choose to carry out the task a different way than you feel it should be done, but let them try it their way and figure it out, and it might surprise you how well it actually works. If it doesn't work out, the client learns that way doesn't work, and it opens the door to try something new, and opens the door to your suggestions. That's where you step in and say, that didn't work very well, did it? How can we do it differently? Like I said, production might not be high at first, but don't worry, the business is going to recoup the loss of production over time through innovation and retention of that employee. So this is why job coaching is so vital. One of our roles is to help the business innovate products or services that benefit the client you're working with, which is going to help the business and the customers as well. That's what I mean. You got to get creative. If they need help with anything, like, it just is so job specific and so client specific, but it's something that's going to benefit the business. So we really need to take coaching seriously. The last thing is use coworkers to assist clients in carrying out tasks. That's going to help you phase out. If they can use a coworker to help them do something, then they don't need you. You can start backing off a little more. So tips and tricks. We use a systematic instruction to help our clients. So there's a specific two-part training on usetp.com/webinars. You can click on that link here after you've gone back through this and review those two webinars. Those are just super helpful to learn how to do systematic instruction. Systematic instruction is just sequence for instruction. It's basically a task analysis verbalized. In my opinion, that's the best way I can describe it, but I won't do it any justice. So just go on and watch those and review those and get to know systematic instruction so that you can best help your clients when you're prompting them. And we'll go into the prompting with using systematic instruction. When we're prompting a client, we use the least intrusive prompt first and become more intrusive as we go along. So for example, when prompting a client to get something, for example, somebody to get something, Bob needs to get something from the fridge, the first step would just be point at the fridge or just gesture towards the fridge, right? Like, if Bob doesn't respond, then ask him to go get it. Bob, can you go get that sauce from the fridge? And Bob, nothing happens. Then you can walk over to the fridge and you can point at it. Bob, can you come open the fridge and get this item from this fridge? And he doesn't respond. So you can go over and you can try do it yourself. You get the item from the fridge, bring it over, put it down, and then take it back, put it in the fridge, and say, Bob, can you do what I just did? Bob still doesn't do it. So you can go physically over to Bob and touch him and say, Bob, come with me. You follow me, or prompt him to follow you. Then if he doesn't, then you can, obviously we're not going to like drag him to the fridge. If he's not going to do it, then it's a refusal. And you need to take note of that. None of those prompts work. Anyway, there's just varying levels of prompting, and find what prompts work and eliminate the ones that don't work, right? And use the ones that do, and then get least intrusive, if that makes sense. So this is prompting is a whole nother animal all of itself. It's one of those things that we need to do a whole training on. But basically, if you can just start by just least intrusive, finding what prompts work, which ones don't, using the ones that work, and backing off as you go along. I genuinely believe if you can get really good at prompting and you can make a really good task analysis, you can get a client independent quick. So the last thing that I want to talk about is data and keeping track of the prompts that you use, and seeing what you're doing on the job that's benefiting the client and what they're doing that's making them more. So when they do something good, we want to find out what that is and keep doing what is good, right? So we keep track of all the data. The data could be what prompts we're using, how often we're prompting. Those are the best. Personally, I think prompting data is the best data. But with these chart examples here, this is these three here are all timed. So we create a baseline. The basic way to do that is create a baseline. You do that by observing other clients or other employees at their business performing the same tasks they're required to carry out, and timing them, seeing how fast they are at it, or just doing it yourself and timing yourself after doing it a few times, and create a baseline of how fast you think the client should be able to do it. And then timing their times against it. So we have a baseline on all three of these of how fast the client should be able to do it, and then their times. So ultimately what we want is a chart like this top right corner, where the client is gradually getting faster, right? You can see, and then you can look back and say, on average, our client started up here, right here, what were they doing? What were they doing around day 4 or 5 that improved their times? What were they doing right here where their times got back to being bad? What were they doing right back here where their times are getting good? And you can go back and analyze that data to develop what's going on and figure it out and piece it all together. So with coaching, that's the main focus, is gathering the data, checking prompts, seeing what prompts work, and developing a good task analysis. And we'll go into more details about those in future presentations. But if you have specific questions about anything that we've been through, this is a whole lot of information. So you can reach out to me, email, phone, text, call, whatever. I'm pretty easy, so just let me know. But I appreciate your guys' time, and like I said, just let me know if you have any specific questions.